Hi, babe.
Hello.
Welcome to Revitalized Womanhood.
Well, thank you.
It's Mr. Trimmer himself.
Oh, my heck.
The man, the myth, the legend. They've all heard so much about you.
Yeah?
All good things. All good things.
I'm sure.
Look, if you're watching on the YouTube episode today, Rick's got his Friday red. Wear Red Friday and his Undaunted.
Yeah, baby.
And his Order of Man. It's very, very well coordinated, dear.
All matches.
I did not wear mine. I was putting on a red shirt before you even mentioned it, but then I was like, I don't like this. I'm not feeling it.
Yeah.
That's
love our troops.
Yep, love our troops. I can love them without wearing a red shirt.
You can.
Yep. Welcome. I'm so glad you came on here with me, even though you're not as glad that you came on here with me.
Well, you told me it's a Friday episode.
Yes,
so
it's a
no
Friday
pressure.
episode, so not
Tuesday episode.
Yeah, maybe
Ooh.
you'll be on a Tuesday episode.
We'll see.
We'll see. Maybe you can come on as my finance and tell everybody all you know about finance.
All right.
That would be a good one.
Yeah, I think it is. I think that's
So the reason
very
I wanted
important.
Richard on with me today is not only because he is my husband and he is the reason for a lot of things behind our lifestyle, a lot of things behind how our marriage has gone from point A to point wherever we are now.
Yeah,
It's
who
off
knows?
it's off the alphabet now.
Yeah, it's
We're
been a long ride.
We're just old now.
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody's heard me talk about when we lost everything. I think that is a huge pivotal moment for us. But even before that, I think an even bigger moment for you was you tell me about the stories of you and your family thinking that you were a big loser before you even met me. You know, not loser like I'm saying, but he didn't want to have a job. He just wanted to play.
Oh, me.
Yeah,
me. I
you.
thought you meant the way I was raised.
Oh, no.
'Cause
Like I'm calling Kendall?
Poor.
No.
Yeah.
I love Kendall. He's
little
my favorite.
blunt.
I would never say that. No. I mean, as far
Yeah,
as
I was.
as far as being not a good employee,
Absolutely.
wanting to always play, wanting to just make a paycheck to go spend it on travel.
Yeah, kind of my philosophy was, even now it is, you live once, so enjoy it. And I always thought that you had to have money to make money. That's what everybody always told me, And so we were poor, grew up poor, lived in a trailer during high school, stuff like that. And so I never thought that I could get to that next level. And so I was achieving that through, debt. I would get credit cards, whatever, work a job for a couple of weeks, get enough money in my pocket to be able to go to San Diego and just short little trips. And I just couldn't see of getting over that hump to financial security and wealth. And so I was kind of in that mindset where I'll have debt, I'll have a truck payment, I'll have a, four-wheeler payment, and that's just the way it's going to be. And so that's how I lived. I would work for a few weeks and then just take off on my job. I got fired from my own father 5 or 6 times.
It's the truth. It's the truth.
Yeah, I was a horrible employee. And they actually, thought I was going to be a horrible, not person, but provider. And they were very, very, very concerned about it. And I remember when I was like 22 or 23, I wrote them a big, long letter and said, I know what I'm doing. I feel like there's chapters in life. And from 18 to 25, I felt like I could kind of be a punk, for a lack of a better word, and enjoy it and have fun and chase around. And so that's what I was doing. And I knew when I was 25, I would shapen up and go to that next chapter. And you met me when I was 26, 25.
25. You were just barely starting out your service.
And
you
I
had your white Ford.
And so you didn't know that,
No,
you didn't,
no.
You never saw that. And I would tell you, my dad kept saying, you can't just change overnight from the way you're living. I lived in the back of my truck for 3 months.
He had girls sleep over with him in the back of his truck.
Yeah, I did.
Parked in the parking lot of his dad's wood mill.
Yeah. And then I got a motorhome for like $1,200. Me and a buddy had to buy it together. And, and we lived in the Zion factory store's parking lot for a few months.
Imagine coming shopping to Oshkosh Girls and you've got Rick and Trevor coming out of the trailer in their tighty-whities brushing their teeth.
I'd come out. I remember coming out in the morning and brushing my teeth, and people were walking by going into work, and I'm like, yeah, top of the morning to you, you know. And that's how ghetto it was, and I loved it. It was a beautiful chapter of my life, and I had a good time. And
ghetto fabulous.
Yeah. So I don't belittle it.
No.
It was fun. It was just carefree. You know, I had $20 in my pocket, and it was good enough. So, yeah.
But what was that pivotal moment with the $20 in your pocket?
Yeah. That was that was the day.
The clincher.
Yeah. So I was going to college. I always knew my dad was an entrepreneur, Kendall. I just seen how, you know, I feel like if you're an employee, nothing against employees, we you know, but if you're an employee, people tell you what you're going to make. They tell you your hours you're going to work. And I saw my dad, you know, running his own business and kind of determining his hours, even though they were probably more than an employee by far. You still have that, you know, you feel like you're in control of your life somewhat. So I grew up with that. I watched him run his own business, and I knew that's what I wanted to do, but I still went to college. And so I was at SUU in Cedar City. And I took classes that I just wanted to learn. You know, I didn't go for a degree. And so I had a ton of credits. And one day I was out of gas. I drove like a $500 Toyota truck. I was in the parking lot and ran out of gas. And I called my mom and said, Mom, I'm out of gas. I need some money. And she says, tough. You know, that's you. Excuse me. You know, made these decisions, and you got to get out of the situation yourself. So I called Grandma.
Yeah,
you know,
of course.
My Grandma Jackie. She's been my, you know, biggest fan.
Everything, great ladies.
Everything.
Jackie is what you would call my quote unquote mother-in-law. She was more my mother-in-law ever than Jan. Jan, who is actually my mother-in-law, she's always just been a friend and a amazing lady. I have women that are very jealous of the relationship that I have with her. And Jackie was more of what you would think of. I wasn't good enough for her little Ricky.
Yeah.
Like no one's good enough for him.
She was pretty picky. So I called her, and she called my Aunt Paula, and my Aunt Paula called my nephew. Is he a nephew?
Brendan, yeah. No, your cousin.
Cousin. And I remember him pulling up. He's 10 years younger than me. And I remember him pulling up, and he kind of walked up to my truck, and he says, my mom called me and told me to bring you $10. And he was kind of laughing, like, what is happening? And he handed me the $10, and he kind of laughed, and nothing, just kind of a weird situation, nothing rude. Got in his truck and drove away, and I just broke down. You know, I just started crying, and like, I got to change. It's time. I was 25 at the time, and I thought, okay, this is it. This was the turning point. And so I dropped out of college that day, and I went home, told my mom I'm done with it. And I think she probably wishes she would have given me some money at that point. You know, she's like, oh shit. I didn't know this.
What have I done?
I didn't know this was going to be that turning point. So I went home, and I had a couple ideas for businesses I wanted to start, and I started my first business, took out a loan, started my first business. And, you know, as they say, the rest is history. It was a wild ride. That's when you met me. You met me.
Yes, I met
right
you when
then.
you were starting. You were having to interview your first employee, which is funny because Emily Frizella, she talks about this on our Tuesday episode that just aired.
Yeah.
And she talks about that she was 20 years old with her first brick and mortar, and she had employees that were older than her, like 30s and 40s, and she was so trying to save face a lot of times.
Yeah.
She was letting her ego get in the way because she didn't want to come off as this 20-year-old punk, you know, that was trying to pretend to be a businesswoman. And you went through the same thing. You were interviewing people, and your first interview was that guy.
That was terrifying.
And he was like 45 or something.
Yeah. He was, about my age I am now.
Yeah.
And it was for a window washing interview. And it was so funny, because you read the books on how to interview somebody, and I was 25, he's 45. He comes walking in, and the questions I asked are just hilarious, like
Like what? Do you remember?
just, what do you want out of life? And like, I'm trying to go all deep, and it's like, this is a guy who's washing windows, and I was just following the manual on if you're
can you show up?
Fortune 500 CEO. And yeah, I hired him. He was a good employee. He worked for me for a couple of years, and I love the ride. What I had told my mom at the time was, I'm spending, I think it was like $5,000 a year, $5,000 a semester on college. And I says, I'm going to go start this business. I think it'll cost me $10,000. And I'm going to look at it as tuition. So if I fail, I'm going to learn how to interview employees. I'm going to learn how to, most of my schooling was in accounting, the language of business, they call it. If you, I think one of the biggest mistakes people make is if they know how to cut hair, they start a salon. If they know how to frame, they start a framing business. It's two separate, totally different businesses.
Yeah.
So I was learning how to manage my books, cash flow, profit and loss, things like that. And so I just wanted to go apply it. So I went out and started my business, and I ran that for a few years and got up to like, I think 8 or 10 employees. And it was in the beginning, it was tough. I remember I had the window washer, and the business was a variety of services. So window washing, pest control, lawn care, anything.
Anything. It was called At Your Service. So you would wash dogs for
I
one
actually had
guy.
an old guy who was in
Yeah.
a wheelchair who called me and says, will you come wash my labs? I
Yeah.
can't, and it was beautiful.
Yeah.
I remember
You actually loved it.
I loved it. I go over there and I'd talk to him, and, I'd put his dogs in a little kiddie pool, and I'd scrub them, and he'd just chat with me. And that I loved. There was times where I remember I was scrubbing a toilet one time, and my buddy, Bobby Crosby, he called me, and Bobby.
Way to go, Bobby.
It was good. It was a good thing, because he called me up and he's like, hey, Rick, we're going to hang out. What are you doing? And I'm like, I'm scrubbing a toilet. And he laughed. He's like, well, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I have a house cleaning business, and my girl didn't show up, and I got to clean it.
Yeah.
And he was just like, I remember he was just baffled again, like, what are you doing? And, there's lots of moments in life where, people are going to judge you or, look at what you're doing and not get it. But as long as you get it and you know what you're doing, it was just a...
That's actually one of the things in the 4 weeks to a fresh start program is if you tell someone your goals and they think you're crazy, you're on the right track.
Yeah. You want to dream high enough to where it...
Yeah. And not even high enough, but if it's crazy enough, like that like us traveling around the world with our kids, someone else would be like, that's weird.
Right.
Or I don't think that's okay.
Right.
And it's like, well, good.
Right.
Then my dreams are big enough. My vision is big enough.
Right. And everybody has different dreams, It's like, that's one thing that, we all think what we're doing is right, or else we wouldn't be doing it, for the most part. And there's lots of times where I talk to somebody and they golf all day, and I'm like, I don't get it, but they love it, and so that's what's beautiful about life is, I always tell you, and you make fun of me. Well, I lost my audio. Oh, there it is.
Quit messing with you lost your headphones. Quit messing with my cheap headphones.
I got no beats in my headphone.
Are you good?
No, I'm not. Still can't hear me.
Twist it. Just
Oh, there it is. There it is.
Just sit and twist it. It's my $20 headphones.
Yeah.
Low overhead, babe.
Yeah.
That's
Hey.
exactly what I am.
That's
Just
good.
ask Rick. I'm
It's
low
good.
overhead.
It's good. So, what was I saying? Do you remember? I lost it. Oh, there.
Quit playing with the cord.
I'm not. I'm gonna have to
Just
bump your
twist
budget
that.
up.
Just twist that.
It's working now.
Okay.
So, all right, Chad, edit that out.
No,
Do what
Chad,
you can.
don't edit
Do what you can.
Don't edit it. Don't edit any of that. Chad.
What was I saying?
You were talking about life is beautiful. We were talking about if you're not dreaming, if your dreams don't make other people go, what? That's crazy. And
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. I don't know what the point of that was.
that's the point. That's a good point. Dream
Yeah.
big. But
Yeah.
anyway, so we get into, yes, I've cleaned many a toilets because that was my job. We
Right.
had vacation rentals.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful job because I love watching things be dirty and then clean.
Well, and when you're an employee, or a business owner,
It's pride.
that was one thing that I loved about my dad was, I'd see him running the company, and then I'd go out and he's out, gluing up handrail or sweeping the floor, and that's the way I was raised. Is I'll wash the toilet if the toilet needs to be washed. I'll hire employees if that's what I need to do. So looking back, I had this what's the word, mentor that I didn't even realize, in Kendall. I think he discredits himself a lot. I was just hunting with him for 10 days.
Was it only 10?
I think so. And we had a lot of good talks, and I have two other brothers that are entrepreneurs, and so he kind of compares us naturally and wants to help us each individually. And he always says, I know you guys don't want to listen to me. I'm your dad. And I'm like, holy cow, that's not me. It's not, I admire what he did, I mean, he can't spell phone to save his life.
Phone.
Yeah. He was asking me actually how to Google something up there, and I was watching him put it into his phone, and I thought, wow.
I love Kendall. I should have an episode with Kendall. I love Kendall.
Oh, it's hilarious.
He's the best.
Hilarious. But he's an old cowboy, and he discredits himself a lot but he's really good with people. I think he had a partner in his business that it was a yin and yang,
Oh, absolutely. And
I think that one couldn't have done it without the other, and his partner, Bill would say that, so I grew up with that. I grew up with somebody who was reading, self-help books and listening to tapes, which I'm addicted to even to this day. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes people make is like, I don't know what the statistic is, but I'll make it up. But it's
Where's your phone? Google it.
Yeah. 90% or something like that. It's a high amount. Stop trying to learn or educate after high school or college, whichever one you go to, you kind of are like, oh, I'm done.
I've made it.
Yeah. And you just stop, and it's like, you keep going, read books about how to raise your kids, read books about how to travel, read books about how to golf, whatever you're passionate about, just knowledge and education, it's out there. You can read a book and you may not get a ton from it, but a couple things out of every book adds up. And, and I'm guilty of it too. We binge Netflix and all this stuff, and it's like, try to pepper in there some educational stuff. It may change your, outlook on something.
Yeah.
So I did At Your Service, and then I ended up starting another business. I sold that one, parts of it, couldn't sell all of it. Ended up selling parts and pieces of that, and started another business, and it's still going today. We're actually in one of the offices of that. Excuse me.
Because that business turned into other businesses.
Yeah. So I started out as a wood mill in Tijuana, Mexico.
Yes, tell the stories about that, because you and Sean's stories about that, oh my gosh, they are terrifying.
Oh my heck.
When he would come home to me and tell me these stories, I was just like,
Yeah, that was a weird one. I was actually on vacation in Mexico, and whenever I start a business, I try to look for a competitive edge. It's like, I'm not just going to start a salon unless I have, a competitive edge of some kind, a free building or a good location or something that makes it special. And so the reason I started United Wood Products was I was in Mexico and I saw a little wood post leaning up against a building, and I swung by there and talked to the guy, and he's like, yeah, we sell stair parts. And I'm like, oh man, my dad owns a stair company. So long story short, we went down there, partnered with him, started making on the weekends. So I was running At Your Service all week long. And then on the weekends, we'd drive down to Tijuana in a van, meet a little Mexican guy at the border. He'd bring it over to our side.
Yeah.
And we'd load up, 100, 200 posts in the back of a U-Haul and drive it back up here. And we were using Sean's garage as our warehouse. And then we'd sell them to Cody and Kendall. And that's how that all started. And we did that for a few months, and then we called up, Angel was his name. Angel, if you're out there, you little bugger.
I'm sure Angel's listening to the Revitalized Womanhood podcast in English.
You never know. Translated in over 3 countries. So anyway, we had our biggest order ever was like 30 or 40,000, and we called him up, and he's like, we're working on it, senor, it's coming, and finally, we couldn't get a hold of him, so we drove down there, and he was gone. There was
Closed up shop.
The shop, there was like an old post laying there and a broken skill saw and nothing. And, 3 weeks before, there's like 35 employees.
Took the money and ran.
Yeah, and disappeared. And me and Sean went looking for him. We thought we were pretty tough, and we're driving around in the hills of Tijuana with baseball bats.
Not tough. Very dangerous.
Trying to find him, and we ran into some LDS missionaries. And they're like, "What are you guys doing?" We're like, "We're looking for a guy." And they're like, "You should go. You need to leave." So anyway, yeah, we got out of there and ended up finding another gentleman, Hector. And, you know, I can go into this all day long.
I know.
Forever.
Oh my gosh, we've got so many stories. Hector, we love Hector. I'm actually going to tell a story about that because the girl that I have a conversation with next for one of my episodes, it's called Sober is the New Black. And I'm going to tell her the story about eating dinner and not having drinks.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, but yeah, Hector was this older guy, just gentleman, just like Kendall's age. And he had a son, Rick's age, Hector Jr., and they became our wood mill with us. And we moved to La Jolla so that we could be closer to Tijuana and Rick could drive down there every day. And I mean, weird things would happen though. I mean, the things that they have to worry about and things that they have to hide about, like they would have Rick drive different cars, so they wouldn't get
different times a day.
Different times
I'd drive 4 different cars. Yeah, it was pretty sketchy.
We are so lucky in this country, and I don't think people really understand it. They go down there and they see people living the way they're living, and they're like, "Oh, that's sad." And it's like, no, you have no idea what's going on.
I actually asked Hector one day. You know, there was the suicide rate in America is actually higher than Mexico.
Yeah,
which baffled me. You know, it's like America is supposed to be the greatest country on earth. Why are people, you know, taking their lives and not in Mexico where they're, you know, a lot less fortunate? And he says, you know, in America, you guys have too much free time. You know, people down here are trying to survive. They're trying to get water and food to feed their children or themselves. And in America, we have so much abundance that we have the time to sit there on the couch and think, am I happy today? How do I feel? And, you know, they say the devil's playground is idle hands.
Yeah.
You know, that's one thing that's always stuck with me is, you know, these people in looking at it on paper are you know, less fortunate than us, but they're grinding and ultimately I think with struggle and with purpose, you know, you're more fulfilled. And so, that was one thing that stuck out with me with the difference in America. I crossed the border every day for almost a year, and it was just, you go from one side to the other, and there's no better representation of life. And that's why, you know, me and you, we travel a lot.
Yeah.
You know, we go take our kids and ourselves to these places. And, you know, I remember going to Bali, and there was a little girl playing with a doll with one leg, little dirty doll, and Hayes and Cass are like, what is she doing? And I'm like, that's her prized possession.
She loves it.
And, you know, and then I think that's good to see, you know, for our kids and for us and then you come back and it's like, my kids have 20, you know, G.I. Joes.
Yeah. I think about that island that we got off the cruise ship in, I don't even remember, you know, probably it wasn't Fiji, it wasn't Tahiti. We got off the island and there was all those kids singing.
Oh yeah.
All those kids singing, trying to make tips,
right.
Like a whole little group of kids singing. And the night before, my kids had been in the kids club on the cruise ship and came back to the room with like 30 balloon animals that they had a person in there tying up all these different things like flowers and swords and all these cute balloons that, and we says, hey, did one of the kids say it?
Castle, actually, he just says, the night, like you said, the night before, he's like, what are those kids doing? They were out there all day.
Yeah, all day singing.
And he thought, you know, they're part of a school thing or they're having fun. And I'm like, no, they're trying to earn money.
Yeah.
And that really messed with him, you know. He's like, wow. And so he brought it up. He says, well, can we take him our balloon animals and, you know, go give it to him? And we went down there, and I think you have it on video where he sang with them.
Cute.
And, you know, and it was a beautiful moment.
And Castle was, at the time he was 7. Yeah, I bet 7 and Hayes was 3 or 4. So,
yeah.
Or 8 and 4.
Yeah, 8. It would have been 8.
8 and 5.
But yeah.
And it was adorable, them walking down and handing these kids all these balloons and
singing with them, and
but the biggest
giving them giving them a little bit of money,
giving them some money and singing with them, and it's just things like that's part of why we do what we do with them, and that's why we think we're so fortunate, is not just because we get to do it, but because they get to get out of this bubble of thinking that they have to have an iPhone or they have to have a dirt bike, or they have to have anything, whatever. I don't even know.
Yeah.
I talked about it with my mom. It's like, I can't imagine what it would have been like for my parents to raise me if I had social media back when I did, because I was already terrible.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, I think it's, that's why I love it, is time with my wife and kids. That's the ultimate thing. And then showing them how other people live. You get stuck. I'm guilty of it too. You date a girl in this town and you break up with her and it's devastating. It's like, that's the one. And once you start traveling, and I do it with my business too, it's like my little wood company in St. George, Utah is my world. And it's like, you go travel and you go see these other places, and there's a little guy in Italy stressed about his tile shop in, Positano, and so it's like, that's, or there's, like what I said with the girl, it's like, there's so many people and personalities out there. Once we live in this bubble. I know you say that a lot,
yes, absolutely.
And with travel, it just shows you that, there's so much more out there, and to not get stuck in your little, we all do it and it's natural. But at the same time, I think if you can get out there and realize everybody's going through everything, breakups or divorces or financial struggles, and it kind of takes the pressure off you. I think.
Oh yeah, everybody's going through everything the same as you. You're not special. That's a big thing, is even people that you're looking at on Instagram, like, oh my gosh, I bet their life is amazing, whatever. It's like, no, they're going through the same stuff you're going through. They're fighting with their spouse. They're struggling with yelling at their kids. They're, trying to make ends meet. We're all going through the same thing as human. We're all human.
Yeah. And I think to think you're, better than that
above
is naive.
Yeah. I say a lot, and I learned this from you, and I love this from you, even though it's so funny because I'm at this point, this kind of precipice almost, where a couple months ago, before I started Revitalized Womanhood, even though I have had my own, not careers, well, yeah, the vacation rentals would have been a career, but jobs, dispatcher and bank teller and whatever, and then managing and running the 7 vacation rentals, whatever, is, you tell me, you never want to be the smartest person in the room. You never want to be like, don't think you are. There's always room for growth. There's always room for, and so from being, just before I started this, a stay-at-home mom, and you would always be like, you need to read this book. You need to read this book. And I'm like, no, that's so boring. I do not want to read that book. That sounds awful. And just these couple months later, where I'm like, ladies, you have to read this book. It's blowing my mind. And it's a book that he's had in our downloads for years. The Atomic Habits is our book of the month this month, and it's been in our downloads for
That's a good one.
Forever. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is blowing my mind. I'm only in chapter 2. And I'm like, this is blowing my mind. Or Matthew McConaughey's Green Lights, things like that. It's like, I was not necessarily wasting time on reading the fiction books because I love them and they're entertaining and I could go through them so fast. But at the same time, why are you feeling like you need to get lost in this other world? So instead of maybe thinking about it as like getting lost in this other world and getting out of your own world, read these other books, like these self-help books or these business books that help your mind think of ways to grow and better the world that you're in, that you're creating.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be business. I've been reading like Sapiens. It was a crazy book. I just got told one while I was up hunting with some buddies. I think it's Guns, Germs, and Steel. I just downloaded it, which is the history of mankind. So it's not fiction, but it's also not self-help. It's just interesting. So, and like I said, it's not for everybody. That's fine. I've tried to get me. I've mailed books to my family. I'm always trying to get people to read stuff that I like, and I think it will help them. And some do, some don't, and that's on them. But for me, I look at life as a video game, really. And these are cheat codes. It's like, if I can pick up a book that teaches me how to, run my business better or interview better or whatever it is, then why not? And you need those releases, you need those Netflix fiction shows or books. I really think that's a huge thing that people need to decompress and turn off, and that's healthy. But like I said, just pepper it in there with some stuff that interests you. There's books on everything, whether you want to be, a better dad, a better mother, gardening. I just encourage people to keep trying to improve themselves. If you're not growing in a business, you're dying, they say. And I think that's the same as a human, So yeah, I read a lot of books about travel and how to book flights and how to navigate and, where I want to go and what's safe, what countries are safe with my, so I live by it.
What I like about you is you went from back to the mentality of your dad being your mentor, but you do have another mentor, Bill. And back when you were like in it with the business and in it with United Wood, and you went to Bill and you had all these questions, you asked him, they're very business type questions, very, exactly what you would think you would be asking a businessman.
Right.
But then this last meeting you had with him, they were very philosophical questions. They were very, what's the purpose of life? What's the, and I
met
love
him,
that.
Yeah. So Bill was my, dad's partner, and he's since gone on and become so successful with other companies. And so, I went out and visited him. I think it was 2015. I visited him for the first time. I called him up and says, "Hey, can I come have lunch with you?" And I think that's a huge deal. People should get mentors. If there's somebody that's got, working out at the gym and has the physique you want, talk to them, engage them, ask them what they're eating. People want to help you. 90% of people that are achieving, the fitness or financial or spiritual relationship goals that you want, go have a chat with them. Take them to lunch. Everybody I've called and said, "Hey, Bill," I called him. He's a busy guy. First time I called him, I think he thought I wanted money or something, because that's natural. And I says, "I want to buy you lunch and have some of your time." And you know me with time. Time is it. Time is the most precious thing we can give. You cannot buy more of it. It's finite. So he was like, "Yeah, sure." And it was a beautiful thing, because the first time I went, I took my cousin Corey. I says, "Can I bring a buddy of mine? He wants to come." And we sat down with him. And my questions were very specific. I was in a rut. We'd just come out of the recession. We have lost everything. I'm working in the shop, trying to run my business. And he gave me a lot of advice on how to get out of the wood shop, start being the CEO, delegating, things I absolutely needed to hear. And I took everything he said, I wrote it down, and I went and I applied it as, for 3 years. Didn't miss a day of work for 3 years. And I mean, didn't miss a day.
Long hours.
84 hours a week I averaged, and for 3 years, Christmas, birthdays, and
doing everything, being the CEO, being the shop grunt,
right.
being the...
And slowly over time, I was able to dig out of that hole. And then we went traveling, and I actually sent him a letter while we were traveling. And I said, "Hey, Bill, I haven't talked to you for a couple of years. I want you to know what I've done. I took all your advice. I got my business running better. I turned it over to some great people, and we're traveling the world, and we've been to, so many countries, and I haven't worked in a couple of years." And he emailed back and said, "How refreshing to give my time to somebody, and they did it." I think that's a huge thing. I have a lot of people coming to me now saying, "I want to travel the world. I want to retire at 40. And it's like, okay, here's what you need to do. And then they don't do it. And that's hard, So
it feels like you're wasting your time. It feels like it's falling on wasted, maybe not wasted, but, or like when you're giving tips to people that have asked you advice in real estate, and it's like, oh, it's kind of not the right time to buy. And then they just turn around and buy. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Whatever.
You're giving your,
it's up to you.
And that's, exactly. I don't know it all, I don't have all the facts. So if they decide to do something different than how I did it, that's great. But, and then the second time I just went out, about a year ago, again, asked him if I could bring a couple of my, partners with me, and we flew out to Phoenix, and, I had 4 pages of questions front and back. And I says, "Hey, Bill, I'm here to buy you lunch again. Can I have an hour of your time?" And he says, "Yeah." And he actually ended up giving me, I think, 4 or 5 hours, 4 or 5 hours. And my questions, it's like reading books. I read a lot of books now, and they tell you how to get out of debt and different things. And those thankfully don't apply to us. We don't have the debt. And so,
because we read the books, you read the books, because
right,
we implemented those habits.
Whatever it is, we got out of that situation. And so my questions were different. My questions aren't about business, because I feel like I'm where I want to be in business. So my questions were more about, he has all the money in the world. Why does he keep doing it? What's the meaning of life? What's his biggest regrets? Just a lot of self-reflecting questions. And it's really interesting to hear how these high achievers think. For me, I love it. It's like I get a peek inside a world that very few people would get access to. And I asked everything I could think of. He answered them all very well. And it, again, changed me. He's not doing it now for the money. He's still working, worth hundreds of millions of dollars, still working. But he told me, I says, why are you still doing it? You won the game, financial game. Yep. You won the financial game. And he's like, well, I do it because I have a skill set that I can use to better people's lives. And, we all hear it, but nobody listens. Money does not buy happiness. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, we have a little bit of money, not a lot, but we're financially secure. And we still have the same problems. We still fight. We still yell at our kids, We're still on a budget.
We still fight about money.
Yeah, we're still on a budget. Yeah. I'm telling you, continue to try to better your lives, but at the same time, don't get lost in the rat race, and thinking that money will solve all the problems you're having, because it won't. And that was a good lesson for me with Bill. He's still, doing all the things that I'm doing, fighting with his wife, whatever, I don't know. But,
Did do you remember, you might not remember this, but when we were very first married in our very first house, I had a sticker that I put on the mirror in our bathroom. Do you remember what it said?
Rick's great.
No. Oh. The first years of our marriage? No. Yeah. Definitely did not say that. It said, you can only be successful in life if all the areas of your life are successful, Tony Robbins.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It was, and you had his discs.
Oh, yeah.
You had his CDs.
Yeah, he's great.
And we would listen to him on road trips, because we would take road trips all the time. We would still travel when we were first married. And it's so profound. And this speaker at this event I just went to a couple weeks ago, she said the same thing. She said your wealth is your birthright. It's not about monetary wealth. I mean, that is a little bit of it. You've got to have the successful aspect of your business, but wealth is everything. It is your body. Are you wealthy in your body? Are you wealthy in your mind? Are you wealthy in your relationships? Are you wealthy in, you have to think of it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, including me, you get focused on, trying to earn money, and you neglect your wife or your body, or your mind. And so, it's a balance. And that, and again, not trying to preach to anybody. I'm working on it daily. And I just encourage others to do the same, to try to better themselves and whatever area you're lacking, pick up a book, talk to somebody, ask for help. I think that's one thing that, women are better at, men are worse of, we're full of pride. I think that if we could get past that, there's a group of men that I've become friends with through the Iron Council and Ryan Mickler's Order Man movement. And it's cool because I've known them a year, and our conversations are so deep about relationships and, deep about the relationship, not just, how's your wife doing? It's like, what's causing this problem? What's causing that problem? Yeah. Ooh, I better watch for that, and finances, we're talking about money. I think that's been a taboo. And I know when I was with you,
it's taboo with me.
I talk about money freely.
Yeah.
Too
and it
freely.
Makes me cringe. It does. It still, even when he's talking about it with other people, makes my skin crawl. It's just like, but it's not supposed to. You're supposed to be able to talk about money. All of the experts will tell you it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
You need to talk about it. Don't be afraid of it.
Yeah, because if you see somebody that's got, the car you want or the house you want, and it's not financed to the hilt, then talk to them and ask them how they did it. Like I said, most people are willing to, help you and mentor you. And so, yeah, we talk about finances, and I'm helping one of my good buddies the best I can. Like, again, I said, I'm not, I don't know it all, but I know how I got here and my story. And he's doing it. He just sold a lot on the mountain. He's got some cash. I've been telling you this, for your listeners. I believe, we lost everything in the recession because we were leveraged. We, making a ton of money, but we were just spending it. It's not how much you make, it's how much you spend. And so I'm kind of telling him how I did it. And I believe there's something, personally, I think there's correction coming. And so I encourage people to save your money. Right now things are good. There's an influx of cash. So save your money, be ready. There's a lot of opportunity in down times. And so he's getting ready, and it's cool to watch, to see somebody that's excited. And I think we can change his financial life.
Yeah.
And he's excited, he's doing some big moves, and it's hard. I talked to him on the mountain. I was up there hunting, and it's right by where I was hunting. And he was sitting over there drinking a beer crying. And he says, "This is my last night at my cabin lot."
Yeah.
And
his wife didn't want, she's
not understanding it really, she's trying to figure it out, and she trusts him, which is amazing.
But it's still sad. It's still
it's going to hurt.
She thought was going to happen. And now
how many times did I call you on Christmas or, whatever, and I'm at the shop working, and I'm like, what am I doing here? I'm, and thankfully I had you and Kendall. Kendall was a huge thing too, that kept saying, if you were just making the money and spending it, but we were saving it. And, I've told my buddy, he knows who he is, that, if you save this money and you put it away, store your acorns for winter will be coming, and the guy with the acorns is going to be the king.
Yeah.
So there'll be a lot of opportunity there. And, so yeah, it's pretty cool. So
to see the fruits, the fruition.
Yeah. Well, and like I said with Bill, it's weird to me, and it's weird to be on a podcast right now, because to be in a position where I think I can help people,
Oh, that's like you saying that Kendall doesn't appreciate what he gave to you, because I think, ladies, my husband doesn't understand this. He doesn't know, because I never tell him, ever. These words will never be mentioned again. Just kidding. He's the smartest man I know. He really is. I think he is. And that's not saying, like, I don't know many people, so you're the smartest man I know. I think he's actually very passionate about bettering himself and learning more, and even things that are funny. Like I want to learn how to butcher an animal, like things that's not going to help him in his business. That's just a skill set that he thinks is really interesting. What are a couple of the other ones that you're like, I want to learn how to?
I'd like to, a mechanic.
Oh yeah. I want to learn how to fix a car.
Welding.
Yes. Like just random things that it's your whole college experience. Did you take ballet or violin? What did you take?
I took piano.
You took very random things.
Yeah. A guitar, piano. Just things that I thought that's
you graduated.
Beautiful.
You didn't even graduate, but you had like so many credits past even.
I had like 60 credits over,
graduate.
And they're like, your closest degree would be accounting.
Yeah,
and I could have got it, and I didn't get it. And everybody's like, don't you regret that? And it's like,
no,
I don't. I'm not one of those people where I need a piece of paper to say this is what I know.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to encourage my children is, I hope, and I guess I don't hope, but I want them to do whatever they're passionate about. But I do hope that whatever job or thing that they pick in life, because that's a huge portion of your life, is something that they choose to do.
Yeah.
And
so it brings them joy.
Yeah, I'm up there on the mountain hunting, and it was funny because the last few days I was hunting with my uncle, my dad, and his friend, and they're all retired. And I'm riding around in a truck with them for a few days, and I'm like, that's funny, I'm retired too, and and I could never have achieved that. It would have been a lot harder with a 9-to-5.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
you still can do it. And that's, again, the buddy that I'm talking about. He has a 9-to-5. He works for the city. And you still can do it.
Yeah.
You just have to get rid of the overhead and get your expenses down and then start investing. And my investments were always real estate.
Yeah.
I like them because they generate monthly income. Usually the value goes up. And so that's what I know personally. But yeah, it's you know, it is weird, like you said, to where for some reason I don't feel like I should be teaching anybody anything, you know. Talking to my buddies, I tell them my story and whatnot, but apparently I can.
I have a lot of people that have said they want you on their podcast because you do have an amazing story. It's mine too.
Yeah, it is.
It's mine too. But well, really, it's not, because I wouldn't have been, I don't believe at all that I would have been where, if we took a path that I chose for us, it probably would have been a 9 to 5. It would have been, a good house, good cars, security. Whatever, security. Yeah, it would have been that. I said with my mom, I said, honestly, I'm telling these women to dream and make their goals and put big goals, but I didn't ever have to do that because Rick was doing it. His goals and his dreams were just like out there. And I was like, I am along for this ride. This is going to be fun. Yes, those are my dreams too. Sure, those are my dreams too. And now, because I've enjoyed them, they're not different. Like, my dreams are still his. We've got our cabin, and he says if it came down to this beautiful, beautiful, amazing cabin that we weren't going to buy yet, but we did because we found it and it was amazing. If it comes down to selling that and traveling, which would you choose? And I would choose traveling because those are my dreams now.
Yeah, me too.
I've become obsessed with the wanderlust that I never in a million years would have thought before, because I was raised in a family of 8 kids on one income. And I think I saw the ocean the first time when I was 14, and we went on a family trip to California, and my dad had won a contest even, we all went to Disneyland. I don't even know if we went to Disneyland. I think we went to like Universal in Knott's Berry, but that was the first time I ever that's the first time I ever got on an airplane. That's the first time I ever saw the ocean. That's the first, you know what I mean? And so for me, it was more of, this is what you do. This is going to college and having my own jobs, or my brother who's a nurse practitioner, or my sisters who are nurses. That was thinking bigger than the generation before. And where you, and like I talked about it with Emily Frisella, is she was lucky to have that. I talked to you about it, that she was lucky that she had that entrepreneurial generation before her, because her brain was already in that. And so I look at that as what we're teaching our kids is think beyond what society is telling you need to do. Like, yeah, if you want to be a doctor, good, be a doctor. If that's something that you love, you need to go to school for that. Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. But otherwise, we're going to show you all of these different, you can have a high school sweetheart, but there's like 5 bazillion other women in this world that maybe that's who you're supposed to be with, someone out there. And they know, they've been there and they've seen these different things. So their brain allows them to think that way, whereas I couldn't ever think that way. Yeah.
And like you were saying, my dad's reading a book right now. I think it's called The Gap and the Gain. He had it up at Elk Camp. Again, still trying to improve himself. He's 70 years old, 69. Sorry, Dad. And he's still trying to, and I love that, it's like he's 70, he's retired. He's, won the game of life, I believe, in all aspects. Yeah. And he's still trying to, and he was talking to me about it, and he says that, society from the time you're little is grooming you to follow their rules. Go to school, do it this way, sit down, be obedient, go to college, get a degree. And I don't agree with that. That, it's like, that is, you have to educate and do that kind of stuff so you can, function, but you can write your, story. Yeah. And I think, there was a thing I put on my Instagram a few years ago where it's a line of people with sticks, and there's a kid in a cage. He's standing there and he's taking the sticks from the line of people and he's putting it around him. And pretty soon he builds a cage, and it says, he's living other people's expectations of him. The sticks were their expectations. Mm-hmm. And so, I encourage people to sit down and decide what you want. Do you want to travel? Do you want to, have kids? Do you want
a huge house?
Yeah.
Is that your dream, to have a huge house?
Yeah, are you just keeping up with the Joneses?
But even maybe that's something that you just love, whether the Joneses have anything to do with it or not. Maybe that's just something you've always dreamed of. And
100%. 100%. Yeah, I
you know,
love
whatever.
Yeah,
Whatever it
yeah.
is.
There's no. That's the
There's
thing.
no
is,
right or wrong.
Yeah, if you want, you know, I had a buddy who had a really nice car, awesome, you know, couple $100,000 car, and he sold it. And I says, "Why are you selling it?" And he says, "Because people are looking at me this way."
Even though he earned it.
He earned it, and I loved it.
He had,
and I'm like, "It's your."
But
he it was actually weird because usually, you know, yeah, he sold that car because of the image. And people were looking at him, you know, like a midlife crisis, or that he's a spoiled brat, and it's like
he earned it.
It's like, do you like the car? I love it. Then what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, and so yeah, I think, you know, sit down, write out your goals, and you know, and then just go to action. You know, that's the biggest thing. People, it's like a diet. You know, I mean, you look at how long it took for me and you to dig out of the hole of debt. You know, it doesn't take a week or a month. It takes years, depending on how far gone you are or how bad the debt is. And
that's what this community is about. That's what the Ryan's community is about. It's a lifestyle change. It's not just a quick diet. It's not you're going to drop 5 pounds this month and then that's it. You're good to go. It's how are you going to drop those 5 pounds and maintain a healthy lifestyle to keep the weight off? How are you going to? It's constantly making those changes, making new habits to be a better person, and it's a lifestyle.
Absolutely. And that's, you know, that's where we're at right now. You know, I know we kind of danced around the story, but you know, our chapter right now is you want to do this. This is your, you know, I've kind of, for me, I've, you know, achieved the financial and CEO aspect of my life. I don't want to do it anymore. I want to be with my kids. I want to travel. And you want to do this. And so this podcast and this movement. And so I'm at home. You know, I'm at home with the kids.
Yeah, I was going to actually talk about that, about our
role
role reversals that we've just taken
And it's hard. You know, it's a hard thing. You know, I think I've told my buddies this. I've been doing it for 2 months now, you know, taking the kids to school, you know, watching the baby, changing diapers, going to the grocery store, you know, 100% stay-at-home dad. And I've been telling all my buddies, you know, I think every guy should do this for a couple months, not a day, not a week. Give it a good, you know, college try. And it changes you, you know. And it's a weird thing to kind of, you hear it, and I've, you know, heard it my whole life, and now I'm living it, and it's weird to be in that, you know. And it's not.
No, we're not saying, we know you women, we all understand what you're saying. It's not that you don't love your home. It's not that you don't love your husband. It's not that you don't love your role. It's that, why would I get dressed up? Like, maybe your husband's coming home like, babe, you're still in your pajamas. Like, why would I get dressed up? I am in the house, literally not seeing anybody but this screaming 2-year-old that's wiping his boogers on me and throwing yogurt all over the house. And, you know, why would I? You become complacent in, I mean, I've watched, how many times have we watched Kung Fu Panda 3 in the last 2 months? Oh my gosh. It's just like the monotony of every day doing the same things. It just becomes.
Yeah, it's like a dream.
Yeah.
You know, or a nightmare. But that's the thing is, you know, so me talking to ladies out there, you know.
Well, you did create, I always joke that the Revitalized Womanhood was created by 2 men in the bush in Hawaii hunting. So.
And it was before I'd ever stayed at home. And so it's actually changed me even more now being home, because, you know, and I tell my buddies this, I'm like, you know, you can say all day long, I love my kids and I love being with them. And I do, you know me.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah. He's the best dad.
But we need more. You know, that's how I feel. That's where I even, you know, a couple months into this movement, I really didn't even realize how needed it was, because, you know, I'm at home, I'm with the kids, and I can do that in a few hours a day if I really put myself to it. You know, the laundry, the dishes.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, if I really got up and thought of this as a job, I could knock out most of it in 2 or 3 hours a day, and then I have 5 or 6 hours a day to fill. And that's where I'm hoping, and I know you're working on this, that you come up with ways that women can not only just be, you know, listen to the podcast and stuff, but I'm hoping that we and you can come up with ways that can enrich their lives financially, physically.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's what we're working on. I think if I was at home and I could be a part of a revitalized womanhood and you know, earn some compensation and be a part of a team and kind of create this movement / business, you know, I think
friendships.
I just think that's what's needed. You know, there's a lot of women out there that are at home. And if my wife said, hey, I signed up for this and you know, I'm making $500,000 a month and I'm a team leader and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, whatever it ends up looking like or being, I think I would just be like, wow, you know, that's amazing. That's a game changer. And so I'm hoping, I know we're working on this and developing it, but I think what you're doing is awesome. You know, obviously we've changed our whole lives. We stopped traveling. We're supposed to be in Bali right now, today. We're not. So we put our life on hold for this and you know, I'm excited to see where it goes. You know, the reason I was so passionate about it was because of the effect that Order of Man and the Iron Council had on me and the gentleman that I've made and the relationship I've made in just a short 18 months has changed our lives. Yeah. You know, and you've talked about that. And so I hope that this can do the same for women that I know it's new and it's in its infancy and it only grows if they engage and they, you know, it's on them. You know, it's like I can hand you the book, but you got to open it up and read the pages. You know, I can tell you to quit smoking, but you got to put the cigarette down. So I know what you want this to be, and I know what Iron Council and Order of Man is, and I'm hoping that you can close the gap, and I know you will. I know who you are, and I'm doing my best to, you know, support you financially and you know, invest the money into this and to watch the kids. And I think it's a beautiful thing.
Oh, thanks, babe.
You're welcome. So, yeah, it was kind of all over the place, you know, our conversation, but
it wasn't actually. Wasn't it? No, it feels like that. I know it feels like that when you record. That's why
it's my first podcast. It's my first.
Good job, babe.
Yeah.
I was your first.
Yeah.
No.
Is that what I told you?
No. No, you're very, very open and honest.
Oh, yeah.
A little too much.
Yeah, sorry.
Our relationship, who was I talking to? Oh, Scott. I was telling him, I'm like, our relationship is, like, people have told us we should have a reality show.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, because we'd probably be in jail.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a wild ride, you know. That's, you know, I think when you have two people, especially, it's...
You can say it.
You know, I just think it's marriage is tough. You know, marriage is hard.
It absolutely is.
And you got two people that met 20 years ago.
You've changed, and we've changed.
Are we the same people? Do we have the same goals? You know, communication, I'm not good at that. You know me, I want to ride around the block, and you want to talk it out. So, you know, I think I told you, I think the key to a good marriage, and we're working on this even now, is trying to reset. You know, you have to constantly, one of my favorite quotes is the one you have about falling in love again. What's that one?
Oh my gosh. I literally just said that on an episode. I don't even know now. Everything's gone. It's on our wall. I used to hate it.
Yeah.
I remember it was in the hallway of our house, and I would look at it and I'm like, who picked that dumb quote to put? They've put it on our beautiful wedding picture, and it says, marriage requires falling in love with the same person over and over again.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's so dumb. It's one person. They're the same person. Why would you fall in love with them over and over again? And I now, 16 years later, I get it.
Yeah, being up there with my dad and, like I said, good family friend and uncle, you know, they were all I have friends right now going through hard times and marriage issues, and they're like, so did we. You know, there was times where I was positive I was getting divorced from your mother or this and that, you know, from my dad. And he says you just have to regroup. And, you know, he kept saying the grass isn't always greener. You know, I think that's one thing with us is you're out there, you know, getting attention from this person or that person, or you see this, you know, thing and you think that's better. And you're very good about this, where it's like in a year, you know, that girl's going to be,
I'm very wise.
That girl's going to be fighting over paying rent and, you know, and.
Or she's going to be 400 pounds.
Yeah. Whatever it is, you know? And so, You might as well. My dad actually said something to me yesterday. He says, I looked at all the other women out there that my buddies were married to. And I thought, I couldn't be married to that. I couldn't be married to that. I couldn't be married to that. Yeah, it looks like I can't be married to any of them. I might as well stay with the one I have, And that's the truth, It's like, you have to find, I know for me, if I'm going through a hard time, it's like, okay, I'm mad at her. She's frustrating me, but she's a good mom. She lets me spend, you've never questioned any of my investments ever. I go through your pro list and it dwarfs your con list. And then I like I said, I try to reset.
Yeah.
And, go away for the weekend, whatever. And also communication. If you're doing something that the other one doesn't like, if I'm letting myself go and I gain 50 pounds, which I have done before, and you've never said anything.
I never
luckily,
even noticed.
But I think it's good for us to try to look at ourselves. I had a buddy in Hawaii actually say to me, he's lost a bunch of weight. And he says, I was looking in the mirror and I thought, would I want to have sex with this? And he's like, no. Yeah. And he went and lost 60 or 70 pounds and he looks amazing. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool that he could process that.
Yeah, that he could say it to himself.
Yeah. And I know you do that. I'd come home and you're in your jammies for a week and then one day you're like, I got dressed up.
That
and
postpartum was rough, ladies.
And you said to me, you're right. I'm like, why'd you get dressed up today? And you're like, because I wanted to do it for you. And I'm like, well, that's, so try to realize what the other one's going through and see if you can help them out there. And then, but yeah, anyway, long story short,
You love me?
Yeah, today. Today we're good.
Today we're okay.
Yesterday, what was yesterday?
Who was I? I said it. It might have been off recording with someone I said, but I said, geez, Rick and I, we've almost been divorced in how many countries? Continents.
Man. Yeah.
Multiple.
Those are hard ones. I remember.
Multiple, not even just how many times. Countries.
Our one in Auckland, New Zealand.
That's the one I said.
Yeah.
I said he left the house, the VRBO we were in, and he got in the car and he's like, well, now to where do I
Yeah, because usually
now?
you get in a fight, you go to the gym or you go to your buddy's house. And I left and I'm driving around the block and I'm like, it's a 17-hour flight home. My wife and kids are here.
I guess she's not that bad.
I couldn't call my mom. The time difference, it was like 2 a.m. at home. And I'm like, so I remember walking back in the house and I'm like, we got to work this out.
You're as good as I can get now.
Yeah, we got to figure this out. And we did,
yeah, we did.
And so if you're going through financial issues or, faith issues or, family issues.
We all know there's game changers. We all know, but most of the time they're not game changers.
If it's not a fundamental issue, like a
or if it's something you can communicate through and work it out and try to understand what the other's going through. Scott has a good saying. He says communication is not understanding. It's you can communicate all you want. You can say, this bothers me. I don't like this. But once you say, this is why I don't like it, like, you know why I can't handle clutter. You know why I have stressors that are why they are. And it's like, because I've explained to you why.
Yeah.
So you get it. It's weird to you.
Yeah.
But you get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I like Scott. He's got a podcast and he's a good friend of mine. And
he'll be on here. We've got an episode.
Did you?
We've got an episode recorded. So he'll be on here.
And the thing I like about Scott is, you know what you're going to get, it's
he is very open with what you're going to get.
And I think that's refreshing. He goes too far sometimes and shocks me a lot. But I really like people who, walk to their own beat of the drum and living their life. And I believe he does,
absolutely.
So no, that's cool. You have him on and, Ryan Mickler, I appreciate everything he's done for us and what he's doing. And I think you've got a good support system. And,
I do. I definitely do.
A lot of friends and stuff. So, all right.
Wrap it up.
What do you do? How do you end it?
Like that. Wrap it up.
Cut.
Good job, babe. You done good. Good job on your first podcast. No, just thanks for being here. Thanks for recording with me. Maybe they'll really like you and they'll want you to come on again and we'll talk about something else.
Anytime you need filler.
I'm like, babe, we got to record an episode. Chad's going to be out of town. We're going to be out of town. Hurry and come in. No, this wasn't filler. Actually, I've been trying to get him to do this for a long time. I've been trying, like that episode I talked to Amy Robbins about how she works with her husband so well and they love it because they
compensate. Compensate each other?
Compliment.
Oh, yeah.
Compliment.
Shoot.
You got mom brain. You've been mom too long.
I'm just thinking right now that I've got a loaded laundry in I got to get it into the dryer.
Do not put my Lululemon in the dryer. Anyway, they compliment each other. And Rick and I, when we were working together, it was like, no. We figured out that the condos, the vacation rentals had to be mine. They could not be his. They
Absolutely.
could not have anything to do with it. Everything he was doing, we would just fight and fight and fight. But so it's never been a question. No, we do not work together. And then this, and we're both so passionate about it. And he's on the same page as me, and he's got the same ideas as me. And I'm like, come.
But I still
me.
give you, I'm like, you should do this. And you're like, no. And so I think that's
yeah, but if you just stay in the background and do the books like I tell you
just
to.
look pretty.
Yes,
just sit in the back and look pretty. Just be ready for when you get home.
Use that brain.
Just be ready for when you get home.
Just be ready when I get home. Use that brain for those numbers that I don't like. And no.
Well, like you said, we worked out, like even traveling, I remember people are like, how do you be with your wife for
you figure it out.
a year together every day? And it's like, well, I'd go to the grocery store alone. That was I loved it. I like shopping. I like cooking. And I'm like, that's my time to go and get away. And then you'd go for a walk. And then, what I always thought was funny is we learned after a couple months, it's like, I book the flights, I book the travel, you pack the car. I don't get near you. Yeah. When you're packing bags.
It's like Tetris.
Well, and if I go in there, I'm like, do this, you're like, And so
it's true.
I'm like, oh, Mom, it's a packed day. I'll take the kids. I'll go down to the beach. And we just had our roles. Yeah. And I think that's in life, if that's your personalities, a lot of people can work together, and I admire that.
Find a groove.
But we're those type of people that cannot. We're too, dominant and personalities, and so we've just learned that if this is your podcast, I'll just come in, I'll sit down, and I'll
tell me what to say.
Yeah, and I'll just
tell me what to wear,
because I have my way of doing it, and I'm very dominant and I'm very opinionated, and it's I'm not a woman. I don't know what you guys what's good or right. So
you're starting to.
Yeah.
Thanks, babe. Thanks for being here.
Love you.
Love
you too.
Give me a kiss.
Oh.
Thanks, ladies. Appreciate you being here. Again, go to revitalizewomanhood.com and you can do either the 4 steps, not either, do all. Sign up for the 4 weeks to a fresh start program with us. We're doing in the sisterhood right now. Go ahead and do it with us. Go to the Facebook group and join our free Facebook group. There's amazing conversations going on in there. Lots of women. Come on, ladies, get over to the sisterhood. And the weekly newsletter. Go sign up. Thanks for being here.